Welcome back to General Psychology in our first module. Today we're going to be talking about effective learning strategies. But before we begin today's topic, let's quickly recap what we covered in Lecture 1.2. We explored four major theoretical models of psychology: evolutionary, behavioral, cognitive, and sociocultural. These models help us understand why people behave the way that they do, from instincts like survival to the influence of cultural norms. So for a review question, which model focuses on how mutations can lead to variation in our thoughts and behaviors, and the variations which provide the most fitness in terms of survival and reproduction are the ones that endure? Evolutionary, behavioral, sociocultural, or cognitive? That would be A, the evolutionary or biological model of psychology. Which model focuses on how our thoughts drive our behaviors? Evolutionary, behavioral, sociocultural, or cognitive? That would be D, the cognitive model of psychology. This week we'll be diving into the following ideas. Section 1 will look at the importance of mindset. Section 2 is going to look at learning styles. Are they preferences or abilities? Section 3 will talk about studying smart. Section 4 will talk about avoiding self-handicapping, and then we'll get into a conclusion and review. In our last lecture, we used the example of whether we think Crocs are fashionable or not to look at how different psychological models can explain human affect, behavior, and cognition, the ABCs of psychology. Now today, we'll shift gears and focus on something practical. How do we learn effectively? Let's dive in. Whether you succeed in a course is not just about intelligence, it's also about your mindset. The beliefs that you hold about your intelligence affects your performance in a course. We can see this from either a fixed perspective or a growth perspective. Psychologist Carol Dweck's research has shown that students who believe their intelligence can grow tend to perform better academically. Dweck identified two mindsets regarding intelligence. A fixed mindset is people with this mindset who believe that their intelligence is unchangeable. They worry about appearing intelligent and may avoid challenges that could expose their limitations. But in a growth mindset, people with this attitude believe their intelligence is malleable and can develop over time. They embrace challenges as opportunities to learn and grow, even if they may struggle initially. Let's take a look at a psychology study that was published by Dweck and her colleagues to understand this a bit deeper. We'll be looking at this study, and we refer to it by its citation. In science, we tend to refer to papers by the authors and the date of publication, rather than the title of the study. The order of the authors is also pretty important. The first author here, Blackwell, is usually the person who drove the study and did most of the work. The final author, Dweck, is usually the author whose lab the work was done in, and who was the senior mentor of the project. Middle authors are usually displayed in order of contributions that they've made, though there's only one middle author here, Chesniewski. In the first study, Dweck and her colleagues assessed the mindset of several hundred seventh graders, identifying those who believed their intelligence was fixed and those who believed it could grow. Over the next 2 years, they tracked the students' math grades and observed a significant difference between the two groups. Students with a growth mindset showed steadily increasing math grades over the 2 years, while those with a fixed mindset showed a decline in their math grades. In a second study, the research team wanted to explore whether they could teach this mindset. They randomly assigned students to one of two workshops. One was a study skills workshop, which taught the students effective study strategies. The other was a growth mindset workshop. And this workshop taught students about the brain's ability to form new connections and increase intelligence through learning. By the end of the semester, the group of students who had learned about the growth mindset had significantly better math grades than the group who had attended the study skills workshop. This study demonstrated that teaching students about the malleability of intelligence and encouraging a growth mindset can lead to improved academic performance. It is important to recognize that your mindset is not set in stone. You can actively cultivate a growth mindset by embracing challenges, by viewing mistakes as opportunities to learn, and by focusing on efforts and progress rather than innate ability. By doing so, you can unlock your potential and achieve greater success in your courses and in your life, regardless of your perceived intelligence. Now let's talk about learning styles. We'll try a poll. What kind of learner are you? Kinesthetic, visual, auditory, or other. What if I told you that research would suggest that these differences in learning style don't actually translate into measurable differences in ability? Many students believe that they need information presented in a way that matches their preferred style to succeed. However, there is no experimental evidence to support the existence of fundamental differences in the ways that people learn based on their self-reported preferences. Although some individuals may have strengths in specific areas, such as verbal skills or visual skills, studies have found no correlation between these strengths and reported learning style preferences. The key takeaway here is that while you might prefer to learn in a particular way, that does not mean that you're incapable of learning through other methods. So then how can we optimize learning? Studying smart involves using effective research-based strategies to enhance learning and retention, rather than simply putting in a lot of time. Active retrieval and practice testing is one way to do this. Instead of passively rereading notes or highlighting text, actively engage with the material by testing yourself. The act of retrieving information from memory strengthens the neural connections associated with that information, making it more accessible in the future. Some examples include using flashcards to quiz yourself on concepts and definitions, or creating practice tests based on learning objectives or past exams. Also, explain concepts aloud to yourself or to a study partner, as if you were teaching the material. Another method is distributed practice or spacing. This involves spreading your study sessions out over time rather than cramming everything in at the last minute. This allows your brain to consolidate information into long-term memory much more effectively. It can include examples like reviewing material from previous lectures or other chapters regularly, scheduling short but frequent study sessions rather than marathon sessions, and using spaced repetition software or apps to help you review material at optimal intervals. Next, elaborative rehearsal goes beyond simply memorizing facts by connecting new information to what you already know. This deeper level of processing helps you to understand and remember the material better. It can include things like relating new concepts to real-life examples or to personal experiences, creating a visual representation of information, such as making diagrams or concept maps, discussing the material with classmates or with study groups to gain different perspectives and solidify your understanding. Create a study environment that minimizes distractions and helps you to focus. Our brains have limited processing capacity, so reducing extraneous stimuli allows for better concentration and retention. You may think that you can multitask, but research shows that when we think we're multitasking, we're often just rapidly switching between tasks, and this can actually take up a lot of energy and impair our performance. To minimize distractions, you can try some of the following techniques. Make sure that you're in a quiet study space. Turn off notifications on your phone or your computer. Use website blockers or apps that can help to limit access to distracting websites and social media. Break down complex tasks into smaller, more manageable ones. Finally, adopt a growth mindset. Believe that you can improve your abilities through effort and effective strategies. Approach challenges as opportunities for growth rather than fixed limitations. Embrace the idea that intelligence is malleable and can be developed, and focus on the process of learning and improvement rather than just the outcome. These strategies may be different from some of the habits that you're used to engaging in, and as it turns out, habits such as highlighting, rereading, or cramming may give you the illusion of progress, but do very little to actually enhance your learning. Just basic highlighting is actually one of the least effective study habits. Once you have these effective strategies down, you'll want to avoid engaging in habits that could purposefully sabotage your own performance. Now, you may be saying, Dr. Flux, why would anyone want to sabotage their own performance, specifically on a class that they're trying to get a good grade in? Sometimes it's a way to protect our ego. For example, what if you're feeling anxious about taking a test, and so you decided to stay up late playing video games the night before instead of studying? If you fail on the test the next day, you can blame the fact that you didn't study, rather than the fact that you may not have known the material. Blaming circumstances rather than ability can help protect our egos, but it doesn't usually help us to succeed. Let's take a look at an actual study about this. It's a classic research study by Jones and Berglis from 1978, and it provides evidence for this phenomenon. Now, in their study, students were randomly assigned to complete some basic logic problems. Some of them were solvable, while others were completely impossible. Researchers then told all of the participants that they had performed exceptionally well on the task, regardless of their actual performance. So even the people that were given the impossible problems and didn't solve them were told that they did tremendously well. Before the second round of testing, participants were given the choice between two drugs. One would enhance their performance, while the other would impair it. Which drug do you think they chose? The results are actually pretty surprising. Participants who were uncertain about their abilities, in other words, the ones who were given the impossible task and then told that they did great on it, they were more likely to choose the performance impairing drug. These participants had no idea how they did so well in the first task, and they couldn't reliably predict whether they'd do well in the second task. So by taking the performance impairing drug, if they performed poorly, they could just blame the drug rather than their own lack of ability. This helped to protect their pride, even over having an advantage completing the task. It's pretty wild what people will do to protect their own egos. So today's lecture has helped us to see how learning is a skill that you can develop. And psychology provides the tools to do it effectively, whether it's embracing a growth mindset, managing distractions, practicing smarter study habits, or avoiding self-handicapping. You have the power to shape your own success. Let's do a bit of review before we sign off. What is distributed practice? Is it studying in one long session, spreading study sessions out over time, highlighting important text, or skimming material quickly? The correct answer is B, spreading out study sessions over time. This allows for information to be consolidated and integrated into your base of knowledge more effectively. Next question. Why is multitasking ineffective? A, it divides attention and reduces focus. B, it frees up cognitive load. C, it only works for certain people. D, it is highly effective. The correct answer here is A. Multitasking increases cognitive load by spending excessive energy switching between tasks. This reduces focus and causes us to perform more poorly. So thanks for joining me on this journey into effective learning. Our next module will take a deep dive into understanding cognition. Remember, stay curious, stay resilient, and above all, live life in flux. See you next time. Flux out.